All right, super excited, super honored to have Hiram Figueroa here on the Move Happy Move It podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time today. Really appreciate it.
Well, hey, it's an honor, and I could tell you that it's the second time really to be on a podcast. But I've heard a lot of great things about you, and I've heard that you can leverage your podcast and reach out to a lot of people that have not yet to be able to hear what's going on. So I'd love to be able to collaborate, and let's get this going because it's Friday. You got to hit the gym. I got.
Yes, and we might have a surprise visit from your wife in a little bit. We'll see.
We're still eating tacos. So she's hangry.
She's hangry. I love it. For those that don't know your background and whatnot, let's talk about a little bit of your origin story.
Sure. So I'm originally from New York. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I'm Puerto Rican, first generation. Grew up in Brooklyn, and at the age of 17, joined the Marine Corps. Left Brooklyn. And it was the beginning of a new Hiram. So I joined the Marine Corps for 14 years, traveled, served in combat, Persian Gulf veteran. Got out of the Marine Corps, had a hard transition. It's nothing like what's going on today, how we're going to be able to educate you to get through the transition. Absolutely. We didn't have cell phones, and we didn't have nothing like it was the yellow books, the yellow pages and the white pages. So from that point, I found a job working for UPS while I was applying for the fire department. Figured out it for a little bit. So 25 years later, I'm working for UPS. So I decided that after 25 years, I get out because, as people don't know, maybe you don't know, but I'll let everybody know in the public, UPS has a high divorce rate. So
because I did not know that.
Right, because here's what's going on. UPS is in the top 5 organizations, right, with law enforcement, iron workers, that we have a high divorce rate because we suffer from alcoholism, bad credit, adultery, divorces, child support.
You associate with, yeah.
So that's what it is. So when I found myself working like 17 hours a day, right, salary, and my wife is a newlywed, and she's like calling me, it's 10 o'clock and I'm still at work, and I left the house at 6 o'clock.
Yeah,
right?
That's no good.
That's no good. So I decided to get out of that, and then medically retired. Then moving forward, I applied for a couple of federal jobs, but to make a long story short, found a federal job and right here in the VA, worked in the VA here in Los Angeles. I won't mention the facility. Let's just say in the greater Los Angeles area. And worked there for 6 years. So pretty much it was a culture shock because when you work for a for-profit organization in corporate America, it's all about production.
Yeah.
When you go to the federal government, it's all about alliances of who you know, and it's not what you know, what you can do for me. And then if you could do something for me, I might do something for you. And if you're against me, I will alienate you. So that's a form of a strong
toxic. Yes.
Extremely. Toxic cancel culture where people will, they can't control you, but they'll control other people and persuade them to give them misinformation that will be false, that will cause heartache and lack of credibility in your point, to make you feel sick and force you to quit or make you feel alienated and not to do anything. So that's a form of depression and PTSD over everybody else,
Absolutely.
So that's pretty much now. Now I work for the Army Corps of Engineers. It's a whole different thing. I'm working from home as we speak. It's a big thing. It's great to understand the levels, but back to you, it's able to have the conversation of what we're having today in today's society, real life scenarios, pre-post pandemic of what's going on. So you have the floor. So what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's incredible going back to right before Army Corps position. So in this toxic work environment, someone is manipulating how people view you, perceive you in that culture, and it's who you know. It's so poignant that you had that experience and that you had that post on LinkedIn, because I was like, oh my gosh, did he read my mind? Because 2-3 months ago, went through something very similar different industry, right? But I could relate to how someone could poison your inner circle and how devastating that can be, especially for me with the association of the content of which they were sharing that was not accurate, of being a mental health business owner and telling everyone that I wanted to end my life. Not true.
Well, that's a classic case of character assassination
Yes.
and association alienation,
Yeah.
where they find something that they collaborate with each other. They might not like each other, but if they find something in common and they don't like you, guess what? They put their differences aside, and you're the flavor of the month. And we're going to do everything we can to enforce our 2 inches of power to make your life miserable. So we will alienate you so you can second guess yourself and feel depressed and take it out on your family members when you leave.
Yeah,
So,
incredible, incredible. So I'm grateful that there was a bunch of random stranger veterans and first responders that helped me out in that time. Because during a pandemic, when you're kind of in lockdown situation, your business is tied up with digital hackers. You can't control anything around you, but all of a sudden you meet some stranger people that start helping you to restore your identity again. It was never gone, but it felt like it was.
what happens when you're in that scenario, right? You start second guessing yourself. You forget who you are. You come with this presence that, you can make a difference in this work environment. When people see yourself as an independent, strong individual, they get intimidated. Instead of embracing the change, now they tell on themselves by showing their weaknesses of how insecure they are. And then instead taking accountability of themselves, they take it on people like you and me, and then they say, you're the problem, So that's what happens to a lot of veterans now, getting back to what we talked about. Just like you and first responders, and especially veterans, we're all built a certain way. And when we're in that environment where we're supposed to step up and respond, and then there's nothing that's happening during the backstory, and we suffer from that, guess what? It affects your way of thinking, how you see people, your lack of trust. And then you have to have that passive aggressive or, attitude that you've got to be careful when you leave the work environment, that when you go home, your loved one's going to say, what's going on? Next thing you know, you explode. Something triggers you.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So what do you think about that?
And how do we, I think that's a great point. How do we separate our work stress from our home stress now that many of us are working from home?
Well, the pandemic has created the new work at home, work at base, right? So I think it's a blessing in disguise, but there's a couple things that that's a caveat to this. And the caveat is this, right? We're so used to personally, physically, mentally, visually engaging people in their space. You can feel the person's energy. You can feel the vibe. You can tell by the tonation. You can tell once you see that person's having a hard day. Versus when we're in how you call it, a Zoom concert, right? We both have silhouettes. We're both good, right? But we're not feeling each other's energy. But at the same time, we're having communication. So as human beings, we're designed to communicate. We're built to communicate and collaborate and to have, right? We're supposed to have some kind of culture that allows us to evolve because we're constantly thinking. So for us, if you're not personally growing on a daily basis, you're mentally dying. So what happens in the pandemic, you're starting to see that because other people like yourself and myself during the pandemic, we've had to globally alienate ourselves because of the health. What does that? They cause a lot of stress, a stifle, and everything else. And then what you're starting to notice is things that you never noticed before, is that there's certain situations that come up that's work related or relationship related that's more or less related to the cancel culture of how you're being assassinated. And it makes more strife because now you have nothing to do with that. And when you have nothing to do with it, you're like confined. You can't do this. So the best way to back to your question, the best way to handle that is identify the symptoms and collaborate with somebody that you can trust, that you can have that conversation, that
Mhm.
it doesn't go any further than the room, just like we're having right now.
Yeah.
If you're sharing something with me, you're bringing a concern to me that would
Mhm.
be validated. And
Yeah.
I'm going to listen because there's some trust and credibility that you're seeking.
Yep.
And how do I see it, right?
Mhm.
So my version of that would be see it from a lens and see it not emotionally, but objectively, and
Mhm.
say, let me give you this advice.
Yeah.
You're in a situation that doesn't benefit you,
Mhm.
but you're putting yourself in there because you have obligations.
Mhm.
So what's going to happen when your health takes over your obligations?
Yeah.
What happens when you start being ill because you're too busy committed to a work environment
Yep.
that doesn't serve you,
Yep.
but then it becomes a haphazard situation where then you become ill and then you're not functional. What do
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, and that's a great tie into there were stats that were done through the World Health Organization. This is pre-pandemic stats. I want to say November 2019 or May, somewhere around there. They estimate that $1 trillion is lost annually in productivity globally because environments in the workplace are not set up for people with depression and anxiety specifically. They're losing out on that, whether it's the employee calls in sick or they're showing up, but they're really not showing up because they're there, but they're mentally there with their kids at home, or they're thinking about, what TV show they watched or whatever. They're not putting that full effort into it. And how do we fix that? How do we improve on that if we can?
Well, to your point is this: everybody has weaknesses, right? And people, everybody has a threshold of mental stability and how much they can withstand.
Yeah.
Depression is not of the weak; is you're being too strong for a long period of time,
Mm-hmm.
and is at times where it's like driving a car.
Yeah.
You got a new car and you're redlining it. You're
Mm-hmm.
pushing it to the max. You're
Yeah.
maxing it out,
Yeah.
and then the engine's going to blow. It's the same thing with mental health.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with depression because you have life issues, you have your own personal issues, you have your
Mhm.
medical issues, and then there becomes the peer issues from a work environment or your
Yeah.
inner.
Yep.
So now, how do we handle that? Is identifying what your weaknesses are and what is it that you're willing to take, and what is it that you're not willing to. There's
Yeah.
non-negotiable standards that you have to have within
Mm-hmm.
yourself
I
that you
agree.
can break within yourself.
Yeah.
Once you start negotiating your non-negotiables with other individuals to appease them, you've lost that battle
You
because
totally lost it. Yep.
they're not respecting or bringing any value, or you're devaluating who
Yep.
you are.
Mm-hmm.
And as a human being, relationships are a priceless commodity.
Yep.
There's billionaires, there's millionaires, there's people that are in high positions, but at
Yeah.
the end of the day, we all have relationships, right?
Yep.
So you tell me how much a relationship costs nowadays.
Yeah. I mean, it's everything. It can make or break your reputation. It can make or break your next career move. Relationships are everything in our mental health it's one of the strongest predictors, our social health, in regards to how our depression is, if we if we are diagnosed with depression, or if we haven't been diagnosed, but we really know we have it. If we don't have our social structure in place, whether it's friends, family, whether they're close by or we're actually reaching out to them or they're reaching out to us, that can be a huge shift in our happiness level. Yeah.
Well, look, we have everything's a shift, right?
Yep.
Let's put it right. This pandemic is a filter, right?
Yeah.
If you have, globally speaking, everybody went rampant. They started hoarding stuff. They started having panic owning. They started going, I'm going to go to Costco and
Yep.
Sam's and
Yep.
stock all this, not even being mindful of other people. Then the
Yeah.
other thing, the
Survival
pandemic,
mode.
it's not going to affect me, but guess what? They didn't know they had COVID, right? And
Yep.
they gave it to their family.
Yep.
So I'll give you a good scenario. My wife had COVID in
Mhm.
2018. She had the classic symptoms.
Mhm.
And the whole thing is she's not asthmatic. I'm asthmatic. And when I found
Mhm.
out that she had no taste, smell, and everything else, that put stress on me. That put
Yeah.
depression.
Yeah. I got asthma. That would put stress on me too.
Right. So now moving forward, we still have that scenario. It's been a year. And in that year,
Yeah.
you've witnessed and you've experienced
Mhm.
people having challenges that they've
Yep.
never had.
Yeah.
And people would never expect that they had it. people losing their jobs, people
Yep.
being homeless,
Yeah.
people not able to pay their rent, people
Yep.
are getting asking for grants and funds, putting a lot of stress. And then other people in a crisis like this, you start seeing who they really are based on their actions, not
Yep.
their words, but their
Yep.
deeds.
Yep.
And you start from one end of the spectrum, which is, I'm going to help you up, to the other side. Well, now you're vulnerable. Now I'm going to come after you. Now we're going to do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And that's what causes depression.
Yeah.
That's what the true diagnosis of a cancel culture, right?
Yeah.
The symptom of what it is. And
Yeah.
people need to identify that. What do
Yeah.
you think?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. And I think more people need to step up and help and serve and, ask how they can really add value, because it's easier to be pulled down. It's easier to tear down a building than it is to build one up. Um, I think we're going to see a lot more mental health businesses starting, mental health nonprofits starting from this, because there's so many people that are struggling right now. I'll give you an example. So I'm from Washington State. My family's back there for the most part, and my nephews in their school district, they are just now transitioning to part-time at the school building. My nephew, my youngest nephew, 10 years old, didn't know the months of the year.
Wow.
Forgot the months of the year. Why? Because you go to a classroom every single day and you see the visual of the 1 through 100 and the days of the week and the months of the year. And we don't think about how important those visual reminders are as kids, because they're not writing down, they're not using planners in elementary school. I mean, some of them are, but for the most part, like, they're not writing things down in their to-do list, right? We wait until a little later in life for that here in the States. But I think that there's going to be a lot more need for support, compassion, kindness, just be a decent human being. I think we need to up the level of that, though, and be more aware on social media and in person. Mm-hmm.
Look, when we're talking about social media, if you've ever noticed that people are kind of cyberbullying and a lot of things, two things are happening, right? Cybersecurity and cyberbullying, right?
Yep.
People hide behind their profiles and pretty much profess themselves as the subject matter expert, but at the same time, they have their own self-esteem, low-level thinking that they think they have the entitlement of attacking another person.
Yep.
What you're seeing is low-level people that are seeking opportunity versus like us, like ourselves, as high-level people seeking accountability.
Yep.
So opportunity is opportunistic. High-level is accountability. Like, I'm talking to you, so what are you going to do about it? You got to hold yourself accountable versus going the other realm of that as well. And you're starting to see that not only in the kids, but overall in the unit. And people are justifying the COVID because of that. And what I say, those are hidden agendas that the COVID brought out.
Interesting. Tell me more.
Right? Because that kind of love language that they've been talking about is, think about how long we've been going at it. Let's say, and I'm not a politician, the last 4 years, the last 2 years, and COVID was the icing on the cake. How much stress has been going on? We're talking finances, everything else, demand, people feeling violated, people feeling highly offended. There's racism, there's different types of things. Instead of, the biggest thing that I can tell you is that we're missing that key component, the lack of humanity. Right? It's only convenient during the holidays. It's only convenient when, hey, thank you for your service, Veterans Day. I don't want to tell you, don't tell me thank you for your service. You want to thank me for, pay my bill, get me a house, get me a job. A lot of veterans have that same situation. What brings me back to that point is that veterans have a hard time aligning with people that they can trust, because they go to things, they believe in things that they're familiar with. If you're a veteran or family of a veteran that is relatable, then they can open up on this, because they all have they have their issues. It falls in lines with the first responders as well. First responders were, essential workers that are veterans in the veteran community. They have science, that ethos, what we believe in. But when we're in a subjective cancel culture, as we're speaking right now, due to a lot of factors. But as you well are aware of, that cancel culture in itself has been running rampant and it hasn't been addressed. They see the symptoms, then we have an issue. What do you say?
Yeah, and I'm hoping, even though it's a small dent, I'm hoping that I'm able to help make a positive flip of the script, if you will, with this terrible experience that I had, but also the beautiful solution that came. Literally, people came and rescued me that had no idea who I was from Adam. And they were veterans, are veterans, and first responders, many of them homeless people. I don't even know who they were. Restored my technologies. I mean, we're talking, I had 2 businesses completely shut down, emails locked, the worst of the worst. Someone breaks into my home, all in that same week. Former business partner completely betrays me. I mean, you want to talk about getting kicked in the teeth while you're on the ground. The worst of the worst happens. And yet these people stood up and said, that's not acceptable. And for whatever reason, they looked through all my content online. They searched all my stuff and said, we want to help this person. We want to help Erin get back on her feet.
Well, look, Erin, it's like this, right? You never know when you least expect it. You can't judge a book by its cover, right?
Yep.
I can tell you this. Let's talk about homelessness, right? I take from South Corona all the way down to downtown Los Angeles. Did you know on the sides of the railroad tracks, there are encampments of homeless people? This includes veterans. And now let me share something with you. I did a lot of peer support with the VA. Some veterans choose to be homeless because they don't align with today's general population, because they fearful. A lot of homeless people they suffer from mental illness and as well as bad business decisions and addiction. So we cannot pass judgment on these people, because that could be you or me living in the tent, holding a sign. But I can tell you that I've seen like 10 or 15 encampments from the train ride all the way down to Los Angeles. When you hit the LA River, there's one encampment that's about a half a mile long.
Wow.
And there's some veterans on there, right? So we've dealt with everybody else. So here's the thing, to your point, people are going to come up and rise because they feel empowered to help people, because when you help and give back, you get a lot of return. When people are more or less holding on to materialistic things, well, you can hold on to it, but it's going to disappear, because at the end of the day, you're going to be gone. I'm going to be gone. What kind of legacy can we leave for future people to follow? Or what kind of role model can we establish in this platform to let people know that we have a voice? If you don't have a voice, we can speak for you, and we can identify what you're going through, because we've been through it. So we can embrace that situation and don't feel alone, because we're not there to judge.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think you bring a great point. And a lot of what you said really just kind of stuck out to me as what I've heard many times from Tony Robbins, who's, multi-billionaire, and he's also not just the money wise, but also helped a lot of people around the world reframe their thinking through NLP practice. And he talks a lot about appreciating the suck, right? Appreciate the good, the bad, because it helps to shape who we are. But there's no greater power than helping someone else and being grateful. But contribution is one of the strongest things that we can actually do to help with our mental health, whether it's giving of our time or giving of our checkbook. Really, I'm a strong proponent of that. Haven't been big on the checkbook yet, but I know it's coming. But I know I can give of my time, and I'm just grateful for you being on the show, and for many amazing people that have, given and poured love into not just myself, but into my listeners. Because I know there's somebody listening right now that is really appreciating your story, is a former Marine. Maybe they work for UPS right now, or maybe they work at the VA, or they're thinking about it, and now they're thinking another option for themselves if they happen to be in the LA area. What do you think? I mean, you've had a lot of different experiences professionally and personally. What do you think helps you? What, maybe it's strategies you've learned, or maybe it's something internal that you just have within you that's helped to keep your mind in positive spaces when your surrounding area is not so positive?
It's a great question. For a long period of time, I'm a work in process, right? I've aligned myself with some other individuals to mentor me to be a best version of myself, right? So personal development and explaining and taking the accountability that we're designed to be built with choice, right? God gave us that blessing of choice. We choose to go this way or we choose to go right. My choice was to take myself from that bad scenario and stop doing the reliving the pain and able to embrace it and move on. What we're doing today is collaborating to share that these painful experiences are so painful, sometimes it immobilizes us from developing. But at the same time, for myself, I constantly align myself with people that are way smarter than me, people that are educated than me, people that are highly successful, because then it puts me in that level that I need to challenge myself.
Yes.
So if you're the smartest person in the group, you got to get another group because you're going to be pretty much on there. And then what happens is I've cut my ties with other people because I'm devoted in my relationship, right? So I'd rather be alone with my marriage than versus being around the drama and hearing people's, we're going through a divorce, I'm going to get child support, and they're repossessing my car, I haven't paid the bills, my kids are on foster care. That's a bad situation, but you and I have a choice not to be around it, right? We can support it, but we don't need to be around it.
Yeah, love them from a distance.
Right. So when it comes to, first responders and veterans, it's like this. How can we be relatable and coachable to understand that, look, I sympathize with what you're going, but you're a grown individual. You have to take accountability for your responsibilities. There's other resources that we can do. How about aligning? Let's collaborate. Then people get kind of panicky. What's in it for me? Right away, that's a bag. It said, are you thinking about yourself or you're practicing that, hey, it's I feel sorry for myself, but I expect something in return. So when people were helping you out, they genuinely gave because they knew that you were in the scenario. So this puts you in a scenario where now you're giving back, and we're having this platform to leverage that, put the voice out there and help other people to say, hey, this makes sense. Because at the end of the day, what makes you successful is the little things you do day after day after day that brings greatness to you, right? So if people understand that you doing this, you're not a multimillionaire, but you're successful. I'm working for the federal government. I'm still married. I'm not out in the street. I'm successful. People are missing that. So that's what that helps me out. What do you say?
I love it. Great tips and great insight too. I think a lot of it has to do with how we define success. And for some people, they are going for the fame and the money, and that's fine. Hey, if that's what you want to focus on. For me, I want to make a difference in this world that's so great. I want to help end depression and suicide globally. I know I will never do it in my lifetime, but I had to make such a big vision for myself that pulls me on those days when I don't feel like doing anything with the business.
Let me put it to you this way. When we're talking about suicide, we're talking about bad thoughts that make you do bad business decisions based on emotion. Talking about first responders, essential workers. Let me share something with you. I had a podcast with some people here in Temecula. This lady was part of the city council, and her boyfriend was a mortuary director. She shared this story that during the pandemic, there was a rash of suicides that they couldn't even keep into the morgue. Now, what's happening is a lot of people are misinformed that any type of death falls under the COVID umbrella, but there's heart attacks, people committing suicide, there's murders, but they utilize that under the COVID brand. Back to my story. Suicide is very unfortunate. I've heard about three or four, veterans that took their lives in the last couple of months. Here's another scenario. In the VA, prior to me leaving, I had 4 people that I knew that died of COVID, right? 2 died in their car, 2 died on their car, and because of a brain aneurysm, the 2 died as far as, of COVID situations. What does that tell you? It doesn't guarantee where life is at, but
Yeah.
these are real life scenarios that need to be addressed because it's specialized in mental health. It specializes, it falls under the umbrella, again, of cancel culture.
Yeah.
And we're talking about pre and post COVID, and COVID's never going to go away.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think that this is the way we need to go as far as mental health is, because is it more in demand? What do you say?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're spot on with that. And I think having an understanding too of, we don't know where someone is coming from in that particular day. We don't know if they just lost a loved one and they're high stress because they just lost somebody an hour ago, and you're having a conversation with them and they're a little bit elevated. Maybe they're seeming a little bit agitated with you. Is to just have a little extra compassion and kindness, because we don't know where they were at right before our conversation with them.
Well, you don't know anybody's story until you can't walk for them. Here's a good example. I had a friend of mine, we were supervisors in UPS, right?
Mhm.
So it's been about 10 years since the last time. So I found from another friend that he caught COVID, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he caught COVID in the hub, went home and gave it to his wife. Then later his wife died.
Mm-hmm.
So now I haven't seen the guy. This
Yeah.
guy, I remember him getting married and everything else. He having a hard time. So these are realities of depression, because here's
Yep.
his depression, right?
Yeah.
And then the other thing is the company's not supporting his situation,
Mm-hmm.
which is another classic
Mm.
case of cancel culture.
Yep.
So us bringing the awareness of what the true definition is
Mm-hmm.
helps people understand that there is a situation like this, there is a culture like that. Help them identify that, help them understand the symptoms of what's going on, the diagnosis of what is the traits, so they're better prepared to how to handle that and not be overpromised and under-delivered based on their investment in their work, their
Yep.
investment in their family, whatever the
Yeah.
case may be. They have to be aware of that.
Yeah.
That's why we're having this conversation, because it's paramount that people know that, and
Yeah.
they have to be aware of it, because this is the new thing, and I don't think it's going to go away.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think you bring a good point too in our relationships, and that kind of ties in with the second pillar of Move Happy, because we are, you know, we are who we are when we surround ourselves with others, and our social health is really a strong predictor of our either happiness or depression. And if we're giving somebody COVID, obviously that's not a good thing. It's not positive for either one of us. But on the positive end of things, what are some strategies or some tips during either pre-COVID or during COVID that you've learned as far as building relationships while kind of being a little bit isolated at home? Anything you've learned?
Well, what I've learned is this: you have to take back your life, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody has to have a purpose. If you don't have a purpose, you're going to die.
Yep.
Here's it. Everybody was pretty much so much freedom. I'm going to go to the mall. I'm going to buy this. I'm going to go have fun over here. I'm going to go out here. All
Yeah.
that's taken away. Well, guess what? Now you're left by yourself.
Yeah.
Now you're left by yourself to identify, what can I do to help me become successful?
Yep.
Hey, read books, listen to positive, affirmations. Look at things in YouTube that are positive. Stop sticking to the negative stuff.
Yep. Yep.
Email a buddy, email a friend, get somebody that can hold you accountable, that pretty much sponsorship.
Yeah.
Write things down that are built up in your system, like are negative. I mean, I find that when you're writing negative things down, you're putting that energy and you're transporting that energy in from your energy down to paper, right? Thoughts become things. So you see that thing, you can be able to burn that out and say, you close that chapter. You have to stop reliving the person you used to be, because that was So now what am I going to do today to be a better person for today and tomorrow? I mean, I have to be able to evolve myself. And this is where a lot of people fail to develop themselves to the point where they need to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
So that's what's helped me and work out.
Incredible.
I mean, work out, stay away from the fast food. I mean, a lot of people want to go to restaurants, they want to eat, but at the same time, we took it for granted. Correct. The nightlife, let's go to the cafe, we go to the bar.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You know, so now guess what? Life has taught us that, you know, we're going to take this away from you.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're going to show you what you're really all about with all these accolades that were taken away. Now what you're going to do? Now what you're seeing is people losing their identity based on the resources that we had.
Yeah.
Now they have to be able to learn how to develop themselves without these resources. And what you're seeing is people lacking the knowledge because for so long we've had resources we didn't want to develop ourselves.
Yep.
So that's what I got from that.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you said a couple of things that really stood out to me. First of all, writing, whether you're in an angry state and you need to let out some steam, or you're wanting to reframe your mind and write, you mentioned affirmations, super powerful. It's in all kinds of literature as far as helping with our mental health to journal. Even if you're not a writer, writing things down, whether it's every night or just when you're going through a high transition state, maybe you lost a loved one and you need to process it through writing. That's a huge one.
Here's what I think about, right? We're so used to calling people. Now everybody likes to text, inbox me. Guess what? Okay, that's fine. Let's get rid of that. Now let's have a conversation where you have to develop your speaking skills, your love language. How can I speak to you? People forget how to speak, or they choose not to develop their vocabulary because they feel that we have these smartphones, they can autocorrect and everything else. But now we take that smartphone or everything, the tablet, now we're having a conversation. Let's have a conversation where let me hear your intellect. Let's hear where you're coming from. Let's see where your mind's at. And I think that now with this scenario that's going on, we need to go back and go to the basics because just like you said, 10-year-old didn't know what was going on. That's a mind sponge, right? Kids at that age, they should be absorbing knowledge, not pretty much demand. That's why they're suffering from some form of depression because they don't know how to identify it because they're still young, they're still developing. So that's kind of an indirect trauma because they lived through that scenario. So they're gonna think it's okay, but it's not okay. You get what?
Yeah, luckily they have grandma that's like, you know, teacher background. So she's like, okay, we're doing the months of the year and we're going to know this by the end of the weekend. So, but not all those kids in that school district have a grandparent that's that closely, you know, helping out, being that extra parent, if you will.
Well, I'll put it to you this way, right? I got back into reading and listening. I have, I have mentors and I'm part of an insurance company called PHP, People Helping People. If you look up Patrick Ben David, right, and Matt Sapala, these guys are two military guys, right? But this is the thing that they've created. They created a system. It's all about personal development. They tell you, hey, you read a book once a month to develop yourself, or not, you get fired. And it's about being the best version of yourself. And then, and then the other thing is how you're going to be able to help somebody else if you can't help yourself. How can I help you be successful if I don't have the tools and credentials to give you the experience that I've went through to help you become successful? So that's why I align with mentors of that quality, because they're constantly thinking, reading, challenging. So your mind is constantly on point. So that's why we're missing that kind of caveat during the pandemic and after the.
Yeah, and I think that's super key as well, because we got so used to having access to our smartphones, like you mentioned, and we could just look up that statistic. But how about when all of our moms and dads and businesses were on Zoom all at the same time and all the internet was shut down? Do you remember that last summer? Because I remember that. And then everybody's panicking. How are we going to run our business? How are we able to run school? Well, guess what? We have minds. We don't have to just use the internet.
Well, that's my point. And this is exactly what we're talking about. We've relied on so many resources that is taken from. We live in the most powerful country, in the highest consumable country in the world. People come here from other countries and they develop businesses. They become successful based on what we give. But us as Americans don't even see that because we're too consumed in our self-entitlement that we feel entitled to do stuff. So when the internet goes by, all chaos breaks out. Instead of going, the internet went that way. Guess what? Before the internet, we did this, did that, make it happen.
Yep.
So the convenience is out. So
Yeah.
that's what's going on with that,
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And and you bring a good point too. It's like we have the resourcefulness within us if we believe that we have it, whether it's asking for help from someone or getting a little bit creative with how we use our time, whether we're in the workplace, school, home, et cetera, et cetera. I know for me, when my businesses were shut down, my emails were locked up, couldn't go on social media because someone was following me and find my iPhone. That was creepy. But what it taught me was, okay, what did I enjoy doing when I'm not on the computer? I love to sing and I love to write music. So that's what I started doing. I was doing a lot of journaling in that time, a lot, like probably 7 journals in like 2 months, like just full out writing nonstop. And I wrote like 8 songs in 6 weeks. And I hadn't written a song before that for like 6 years. So huge level of just creativity just getting pumped out. For me, it's like looking back, I'm so grateful for the suck, right? For the bad thing that happened because I wouldn't have had those songs.
Well, it's like this. Your productivity showed you the results of what you've done because everybody has the capability of productivity.
Yep.
This is what we're talking about, leisure living, right?
Yep.
We have so many resources. We're leisurely living. We're not doing the productivity unless it's handed to us.
Yep.
So therefore, your constant productivity helped you overcome these challenges and help you identify yourself of who you are. Versus people feeling sorry for themselves and asking for a handout. I need help. So people are losing their self-esteem and their thought process. And this is goes back to second guessing yourself. Depression is easy. Blame it on COVID. You can blame it on everybody else, but at the end of the day, when you go and look at yourself in the mirror to brush your teeth, who are you looking at? Yourself.
Yep, exactly.
Right?
Yep.
And you took how many no's to have yeses right now? You took how many no's right now? You went through all these changes. No, this didn't happen. This didn't happen. This didn't happen. To get what? To get the yes that you have right now. So what I did for myself, I'll take as many no's as possible to provide a valuable, balanced work-life balance for my family in order to be successful. And that's what people are missing on that point.
Absolutely. And I think you bring a good point too, is that it's okay to hear no's. For me, when I hear a no, it's a not yet. If it's something that I know I really want, I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it some way. Maybe not this year, but it'll happen. It'll be, if it's supposed to happen.
A no is also psychological. It's a takeaway, right? They see that they want to take away from you, right? It puts you as well. You're saying no to me. Nobody tells me no, right? Nobody tells me no. You're not going to tell me no in my face, right? Or you're not going to tell me no on an email. That's even worse, right?
Yeah.
Because no, you're not accepted because of this.
Yeah.
Say, well, you're not accepted.
Yeah.
The kind of crap is that? And that's more cowardly than someone telling you no, right? And I believe it takes a lot of guts to tell somebody no, you can't have it.
Yeah.
We decided to move on forward with other candidates, and no, you're not selected.
Oh, that happened to me this last week. Ooh. But you know what's funny? Is that all right if I talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, of course.
Be real on the show. So we're on this conversation. This is a regional sales manager role, new industry, never worked in the industry before, 3 to 5 million responsibility for my territory, plus growing at 20%. I'm like, I could do that. That's fine. It's no problem. Didn't get the job, didn't work out. But here's what he said. If you think it would be of value to your brand, we'd love to talk about in the future getting on your podcast. I said, I think we could have that conversation. And additionally, I think because you work with the government and have some military contracts, I've got a nonprofit I just launched for our veterans and first responders. I think it would benefit you to grow your brand nationally to be a premier sponsor for my nonprofit. He said, sure. So I turned that no into, he's probably going to help out their business. They have the money to do it if they want to, if they really care about our veterans. And they're probably listening right now once we get this aired. So there's your nudge. But really, I mean,
I got two stories for you.
All
Right.
right, I'm ready.
Right. Three stories. I've been applying for LinkedIn for a long period of time. Right.
Uh-huh.
Go ahead. So my qualifications speak, right? Let's just say, a recruiter calls me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hey, your resume is impeccable. Your experience, I looked at your profile, is outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to hire you. Do you have your degrees? And I go, no. But it says on your resume, I said, my resume says I attended the schools. So we won't be able to hire you. I said, why? Because you don't have the degree. I have over 35 years of experience. You just told me I have an outstanding everything else.
Yeah.
Do you have a high school diploma at least? And I said, yes. Well, you're going to have to withdraw your application because they're going to vet you out. But here is a recruiter,
Wow.
right, that's going through my profile, right,
Uh-huh.
and is seeing everything. And then now when we're having that conversation, I didn't say nothing. I didn't want to be disrespectful, but in the back of my mind is bullshit. I'm not going to do that.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to do that. Why are you going to give me all these accolades? And because of a piece of paper that might be sufficient, but the work experience is more important than what it is.
Yeah.
That can be transferable skills that can be able to bring value and return investment. You don't want to bring, no. Another scenario, another high profile, military contracting gig. The guy interviews me. Okay. Hey, I love the way you talk, Hiram. I love this, everything else. We can see you doing this job. I can see why you're such a powerful leader. I said, great. So, question again. You have your degree? I said, nope. Well, it says this. I said, no. I know what it says, right? So the conversation abruptly ends, right? I call him back. He doesn't answer. I get an email from this individual. This individual says, based on your qualifications and the council, right? They find that, you're not qualified and we're looking for highly competitive professional people. High caliber people, and you do not fit the quota. All right.
Wow.
The last one, I go to a job interview, right? Recruiter comes up there. Hey, you great job. Meet this interview. This is for a construction company locally. So I'm all jazzed up, right? Thinking I'm going to be working home. I go to the interview. I talk to the guy in the interview. It's great. They're military, prior military.
Yeah.
So I go to the office, I meet this other guy. He's a safety manager. And we sit down. He says, so, we're veterans, right? We can speak this way. So, excuse me. He goes, so what do you want? Just like that. I said, what do you mean what I want? I want an opportunity.
Yeah. That was the first question out of his mouth.
Yeah. So you're witnessing quite a few things, right? I've learned that this, right? You can't put too much of a long history because there is a thing called ageism in social media, right?
Yeah,
people will not understand. They'll be frustrated. I've seen a lot of people. It took me a year to get into this other job, but I can tell you the heartaches and the disappointment and the blunt disrespect and the lack of professionalism when people like yourself or me are pursuing other careers.
Yeah.
So I get what you're coming from. So I've lived the dream like you have.
Yeah. And we just have to keep going. And for those that are listening or watching this on the vlog, keep applying. If you're looking for a job right now, like, don't give up, reach out. LinkedIn is super powerful. Reach out to whether it's either of us or reach out to people and ask them for recommendations and referrals because it's a really powerful tool. It's really powerful.
Look, LinkedIn has changed a lot of ways, right? What I've done is been able to leverage YouTube, which is a very valuable tool on social media, not only for other, podcasts, but educational. Hey, learn how to write a resume. There's resume writers on LinkedIn. I had one that helped me out. Yeah. There's ways about doing public speaking, how to do, how to filter your talk and learn how to win a phone call interview, how to prepare yourself. There's so many valuable tools out there, but a lot of people are just caught up on the, low level things they're going to get them by. They think they're going to be able to wing this out there. When you're out there job hunting, you only have you have one time to make a first impression. You don't have the second time to do that.
Yep.
So, my story I wanted to share with you.
100%, 100%. And you've landed a new one. How long you been in the role now?
This one, it's 1 month.
1 month. So how are you feeling about it?
Well, I'm working from home, so I'm grateful. So for so many years of driving, doing 150 miles a day, right? 6 days a week, from South Corona all the way down to LA, right?
Yeah, that's
so. Whew. And think about it. I'm using a Honda Civic. Yes, I'm driving a Honda Civic because it saves me gas and it's reliable.
Yeah.
So during the pandemic, there was no traffic. So the fastest I've gotten into Los Angeles was 35 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And I was doing 90, right?
Yeah.
But somebody going by me doing 120. But I had to get up early in the morning. I get up at 2:15 in the morning to leave my house at 2:45 to beat the traffic.
Yeah.
And I would get there about 40 minutes and then sleep in my car for next 2 hours. Then,
wow.
And then, we have our transponder to use the toll road. I would use that coming back because going back on the 91, that's a 2.5 hour ride in the parking lot.
Oh, gross.
So 6 years of doing that versus me working twice a week at the office, and I take the train and I'm working. So sometimes it's not about the money.
Yep.
It's about the quality of life. And my wife sees me, so she's saying, hey, you better pay attention to your computer. You're on probation. Yes, I understand that. But at the same time, you can't buy that. I mean, how many people are applying for jobs to work at home?
Yes.
You get me? So I'm going to make do with what I have. I'm grateful for what I have based on what I went.
Yeah.
So, and, when we're talking to people, they should continue to not quit on themselves.
Yes.
Because society wants you to quit on yourself.
Yeah.
Right? You went through your stuff.
Yep.
I went through my stuff. We're still here talking about it. As a matter of fact, we're laughing about it because it was like laughable now, but it wasn't laughable back then, right?
Yeah, no.
And we're pretty certain, we're clear and certain about what we went through. Yep. So if this conversation can help people empower themselves and say, everybody has a challenge in the story, there's reasons and excuses, but you can't have both.
Yep.
You can't have both.
So true.
And that's what we're talking about in this scenario. It goes back to choices, reasons, and excuses, and how you define yourself, and how do you allow yourself to keep your word for non-negotiable items that are built in your DNA. If that makes sense to you.
Yes, absolutely. And you talked earlier about one of the things that has helped you is working out. Our third pillar of Move Happy is all about movement, of course, doing things we love to do. What is your favorite way to move your body that doesn't cost a lot?
Look, let me tell you, I work out now. I mean, I just turned 60. I got to work out every freaking day.
I would not have guessed that.
Well, that's I'm disclosing that. So prior to that, I just take my wife. We used to go salsa dancing all the time and dance.
Fun.
So I think that the movement of the body does a couple of things, right? It releases the toxins, right?
Yes.
It raises the endorphins. It helps you rejuvenate, perspires. It helps you interact with people.
Yes.
Especially if you're dancing, it teaches you that you still have your motor skills and create your memory, because you're going back to thinking what moves you're doing and everything else. So it helps you bring a better perspective on your life, and you're not dead, So if you're still having that, your body's still intact and you're standing, you should be able to enjoy the music of life and do whatever you can, because we're all gonna die.
Yeah.
It's just how you
might as well have a good time.
We might as well choose. I mean, seriously, I look at it this way. I have to emphasize that I would have never thought that I got to this point in my life and turning 60. And I could tell you that at that point, the trigger of hitting 60 told me, wow, I just turned 60. Where did 60 years go by so quick, right? Now I'm looking at down the road, 70 is not that far away. Before you know it, I'm 70. Before you know, I'm 80. So
Yeah.
between those 20 years, life happens, a lot of illness happens. So
Yeah.
we can't take that for granted, because everybody has this guarantee in mind that my house is just more important than my personal evaluation. That's why you're seeing a lot of people during the pandemic. There was a lot of high rate of GoFundMe's. There was a high rate of, they can't bury the bodies. There's a high rate of debt.
Yeah.
People are not paying attention that your most valuable commodity is yourself.
Yes.
Why don't you yourself and insure yourself to make sure that you don't put the burden on your family, because you live every day and you die once. The one time you die, if you're not planning to make sure that you take care of your family, then you just did a disservice, not only to yourself, but the family, because now they have to live through that. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And I love that you mentioned salsa dancing. A quick story to tie it in. So this whole Move Happy thing started in a psychiatric hospital I worked in, long-term stay. They were there for at least 180 days, 6 months, some up to 30 years. And in my first round, I got to run it three rounds. First round of the program, I had a gal that cried every day in the hallway between groups. She was gang raped, like real bad stuff happened to her. And she was in my group. I didn't know her that well because it was still, I want to say like a month at me starting working there when I created the program. I was very fresh meat there. And my colleague, licensed therapist, she pulls me out after groups. That was the last group of the day. And she says, Erin, do you have any idea what I just saw? And I said, I'm like walking around the room and I'm scanning, and I'm making sure I'm demonstrating the moves and things. And it was a station day and I had a salsa station, and the particular patient that was always crying in the holiday, she was laughing, smiling, and dancing. And I was like, okay, like that to me is normal feelings when you're dancing, right? She says, Erin, she has never smiled. I have worked with her one-on-one for 4 years. And I was like, holy moly. She said, I didn't know she liked dance. And it was just one simple station within the workout. Dance is so powerful to help with our mood. More so, I mean, it's great for our fitness.
Yeah, but it's for your mood.
But
I agree.
So powerful.
If you notice that's the biggest thing that people are losing, right? We're talking right? The ability to dance, the ability to enjoy music, the ability to that certain songs define your past, your present, and what can happen in the future. Certain songs kind of stick in your mind that, wow, it's reminiscing. Or certain songs that emotionally invoke your emotions to the point where I can feel great about this, because music is something that is very important in our lifestyle. And also, like my dogs, man, when they listen to the music, they're all calm. They're all liking that. So when somebody like that has acute mental illnesses, right, challenges like that, they probably still have that point of happiness in themselves. That's why people should never categorize somebody that's so mentally messed up, whether they're having depression or PTSD, because at one time they were intact. Now that they're broken doesn't mean they're broken for different reasons. They're just broken, but they're functioning in a way that only they can understand, that they can relate to, and they need to find people that they can relate to that have the same problem, so they can be accepted. So when that scenario happens, and they find themselves resistant or resentment, those are ways of depression, because people have subjected themselves to cancel culture because they feel that they shouldn't act that way. But at the same time, they want to feel validated when they're going through that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you bring a good point too. I think traditional mental health services, whether it be therapy, group therapy, counseling, whatever you want to call it, traditionally, over hundreds of years, is focus on the problem. Let's focus on the problem. Let's process through the problem, and then you're good. Positive psychology, on the other hand, it's only really been out for a couple decades, like actually in white papers, literature backed by, scientists and whatnot. but it doesn't focus on the problem. Yes, you acknowledge the problem, but what you focus on is solutions. You focus on
Correct.
what does the person enjoy doing? How can we get them contributing, giving to others so they're not focused on their own misery right now, but they can help others. And through helping others, through gratitude, through giving, through compassion and kindness, heal on that journey while also benefiting people around them. And I think that's what made it different in that hospital, because nobody had ever done that before. No one had ever really combined that too, along with the fitness and whatnot. So I'm glad that you brought the salsa dancing in, because I was like, oh, we got to talk about that for sure.
Well, another person that's very influential, if you ever look on YouTube, Dr. Joe Dispenza. Dr. Joe
Yes,
Dispenza.
I love him.
That man has put things in perspective. This man
Yes.
was an athlete, got hit, was paralyzed, had thought his process and changed the perception of how he viewed things and mentored
Yeah.
and be able to service the community of how they do things.
Yeah.
If people would take time to understand that there's possibilities with that, they could be beneficial. But then again, when we're talking about, hey, I don't have time for that. Well, okay, you don't have time for that, but you have time for this. This is where you call people out. They call themselves out. I don't have time for that. You
Yep.
choose not to have time for that.
Yes.
But when you're at the bar and you're crying the blues at the first round and you start talking after you get liquored up,
Yep.
well, my wife left me. She was cheating. You know, she took my bank card. They went to Hawaii, whatever the case, and you're crying the blues. That's a form of therapy, but you're paying for it to perfect strangers that really don't care.
Yeah.
Right? They see
So
your
true.
they don't care. I mean, I worked in a nightclub. I would see these people. They were crying the blues when I was a security guard, and they would go like, "Man, this is going on." I said, "Bro, this is about the third time you told me this. What are you going to do?"
Yeah.
Man, I'm trying to do it. I said, well, you trying is you thinking about it.
Yeah.
And you're holding this glass of cognac. And how much have you spent on the cognac? Well, I got 100. I said, you could have gone to see therapy for that time.
Yep. Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying.
Yep.
Those people, they choose it when they don't have enough time. It's convenient when they don't have enough time.
Yep.
You know?
100%. And that's something that happens sometimes when it might be a friend conversation, or it might be a stranger in a bar because they're too loose after having too many drinks, is, oh, okay, are you venting or do you want me to help you solve it? That's a quick way to shift the conversation, because
I do that all the time. help me help you. Help me help you. This is what I mean. Help me help you, because you're not helping yourself.
Exactly.
You know, you're coming to me, you're asking for sympathy. I'll give you the towel, but at the end of the day, you're gonna go sleep with yourself. Your ass is gonna wake up throwing up and you're probably passed out.
Yeah.
You know, you won't know what the hell happened. Then you're gonna say, that wasn't me, Hiram. Of course that was you.
Yeah.
You under the So your bad choices of being the influence was your form of therapy, but the problem is still there waiting for you.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. 100%. And thank you for that. What are you really excited about, focused on, passionate about, that we can support you with here at Move Happy? This has been really, really fun talking.
So look, like I said, I have a different direction. I'm living at the last third of my life, right? I'm looking at making sure what quality of life I'm talking about. The support I'm looking at is people, listening to the message, right? I'm out there, veterans. Also, they're helping families in the insurance business and people helping people, right? We're looking for average people that can't afford insurance, but they need to protect themselves because their mentality is, it's never going to happen to me. It's never going to happen to me. And I think that the importance of taking accountability for yourself and financially empowering themselves and knowing about finance, knowing about how finance is being done, and knowing that there are people that genuinely care. That's what I'm all about, because being transparent on what I say in my message is very valuable, because at the end of the day, it's my word. I'm not going to break it to you or break it for somebody else, right? Trust and credibility, transparency is there. Is helping people understand that they can help themselves if they choose to go out there and listen and follow and say, hey, I want to be mentored. How can I be mentored to be successful? So, you know, people reaching out to me, they can look me up on LinkedIn. They can reach out to you.
Mhm.
My wife's in the business now, insurance. She's excited about,
Awesome. Mhm.
you know, she's been a hairstylist for 27 years, right?
Oh, cool.
She had that cancel culture in the last, you know, environment that she was in. And I was
Mm,
going like, look, you're at a certain age. Let's talk about business. So we
yeah.
have to reinvent ourselves. So
Yep.
what people are failing to do is that, think about this, Erin. Eventually, you have to reinvent yourself. There's going to be another stage in life. You're going to have to reinvent yourself.
Yep.
So we have so many options. So we're reinventing ourselves. So we want to be able to share the public that, hey, we're out there to help people.
Yeah.
We're asking we're not asking for anything. We're just asking for an opportunity. Just hear what we have to say.
Hmm.
At the end of the day, it's your decision. Ain't a
Yeah.
fit for you? That's fine. But at
Yeah.
least you got the. So that's all I gotta
Yeah.
say.
Love it. So we'll definitely drop your link when we post this. This will come out on Monday. And then I always love to close out the show with, a fun, random, impromptu question. And you kind of talked a little bit about, fun dancing with your wife. When you're not working, is salsa dance, is that your favorite thing to do with your wife? Or how do you enjoy, what's your favorite thing with your wife when you're not working?
You know what? I've learned this, right? I was a bad dude back in the day. I mean, if you knew me freaking 10 years ago, you would throw the cross in holy water because the guy was bad. I was a nightclub owl. I mean, I was living in the nightclubs for 4 nights a week,
Mm-hmm.
dating different women. To me, right now, I'm very content to the point that when you have a partner in life, you have to be able to do everything because the moments are precious, right?
Yeah.
So the moments are whatever you share that you have memories, because at the end of the day, when you spend time with people, right, or somebody that you love, you can't put a price on memories, right? You
Mm,
can't.
yeah.
So memories are priceless commodity. So what
Mm-hmm.
I like to do is spend time with my wife and say, hey, do this because I'm done with the club scene.
Yeah.
Been retired. That I don't like hanging out in the man caves. That's good for man thing, but at the certain time when you're constantly going to man caves, there's an issue because you're
Yep.
not working from home.
Yep.
So I
Good.
like to just spend time with my family and be at peace with it, and
Mhm.
network with everybody else, and
Yeah.
just work out and just have a good life like anybody else. That's
No,
about it. No more, no less.
yeah, I think that's beautiful. And I think more people should be focused on enjoying the memories, creating memories, because that's really at the end of the day, all we have is our memories with our people that we love.
Well, it's like this, Erin. Think about it. This is gonna last. We lived through this.
Yep.
This is never gonna go away in our minds, right? This is
Never.
gonna be a point. It's implanted in our head, right?
Yeah.
Bipartisan, right?
Yeah.
A disclosure that's pretty much like, you lived through the pandemic. How was it? It sucked.
Yeah.
This is what happened, right? You're
Yeah.
gonna be, well, how was it? It was like this. I mean, it's the same thing versus you going out with your friend,
Hmm.
your relationship. I had a
Hmm.
great time.
Yep.
Nobody's going to take that away from you. Who else
Yep.
is going to take that away from you but yourself?
Yep. Yeah.
You know?
This is going down
So,
in history books. I love it.
all right.
Well, this has been incredible. Would love to have you back on the show for a follow-up session down the road. Maybe have your wife pop in and give her
Sure.
perspective as well. Thank you so much again for your time. I really appreciate this.
And likewise, and I appreciate you taking the time out. You were going to the gym. It's Friday. I'll go first thing in the morning. I got that locked down. But no, your work speaks in high volumes. I mean, you seeking out to me on LinkedIn and everything else speaks a lot of how important it is. And I think that, and I know that this message will reach out and touch quite a few people because this can be very much relatable to
Yeah.
their experiences.
Yeah.
And who's to say if they get some comeback from it?
Yeah. Yeah. I think we both were real raw today. So I appreciate your authenticity.
Oh yeah, we didn't curse that much, but it was like we'll keep it at pretty much raw because learning of public speaking. I was watching it today. Is like, hey, you got to be able to take the curse words out, and you got to be able to be passionate and have the energy and know your stories and come back and everything else. So prior to podcast, I was studying that. So I figured I'd be able to.
Very well. You've done very well. Gary Vee would disagree with that. He curses all the time in all of his content.
Right.
He's turned down a lot of money, he said publicly, because he said, I will be myself. If I lose business, it's with someone I don't want to do business with anyway. So you just be yourself. That's my opinion.
So once again, right, if people want to, check me out, just look at LinkedIn. My wife's on Erin Figueroa on LinkedIn, and we are the PHP, People Helping People, and it's run by Patrick Ben David, who's the CEO of People Helping People. He came from Iran. He's a United States Army veteran. Matt Sapalis, Money Smart Movement, also. Cool. He's a United States Marine, both multi-millionaires. So I align with people like that, and they're from the veteran community. So It's pretty legit.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. Really appreciate your time, and we'll be in touch.
All right. Take care.
All right. You too.